Well, hello there. So I'm sure that you know exactly what you want. So my question to you is why aren't you moving toward it? That question is at the center of today's conversation. And my guest has spent his career answering it for people who felt just as stuck. Kam Knight is a coach, international speaker, and the best selling author of a dozen books on mental, emotional, and physical performance. His approach doesn't recycle the same advice everyone else is giving, and that's earned his books a reputation as the gold standard in their field. He has helped over 500,000 people work through exactly what you're going to talk about, or what we're going to talk about today. He's also traveled to over 100 countries. So he clearly doesn't sit still for long. Today, we're getting into something Cam calls internal resistance. Why the things we want can actually work against us, and the tricks resistance plays that most of us never see coming. So, help me to welcome our guest for today, Kam Knight. Hi, Cam. How are you? Oh, Cam, I can't hear you.
That's because I had the mic off
Oh,
while
there
you were
you
doing
are.
the intro. But I am doing fantastic and thank you for having me on. I am really excited to be here.
This is great. I am fascinated by this topic. I'm also fascinated by your story, and that's where
Yeah,
I would love to start. Before we get into the whole internal resistance,
yeah,
which is interesting in itself, I'd love to have you tell the people how you got here and what
sure.
was going on in your life before you became known as an expert in performance.
Okay. So I'll quickly reintroduce myself. My name is Kam Knight. I am a coach, international speaker, and author of a dozen books in the area of mental, physical, and emotional performance that have over 10,000 ratings on Amazon and have sold over 500,000 copies. And now I do talk about a concept called internal resistance, and it answers a question I more or less had my whole life. And that is, why is it if I want to do something, I know what to do, I know how to do it, and I have the motivation and desire to do it, but for one reason or another, I can't or don't do it? Now, at the time, there were no clear answers. The best answers I came across were things like belief or that you needed motivation and discipline. And yes, beliefs, motivation, and discipline are all part of the equation, though I felt like there was more to it. And over that past 15 years, that question lingered in my mind. Every time I felt stuck, I wondered why. Why can I get stuff done? Why do I keep spinning my wheels? Why don't I just do this dang thing so I can get the result that I want? And the more books I read, coaching I did, as well as seminars I attended, and as well as traveling to all corners of the globe, studying some of the most successful people, not just in our time, but through history, I began to realize that there's a part of our brain designed to hold us back. It's hard to imagine, but there's a part of ourself that is built to keep us from growing and making progress. And I call this part resistance, and is this brick wall that we hit anytime that we want to do something, no matter how much we want to do it.
And I love the way that I have heard you describe some of those brick walls. Like, what are some
Yeah.
of those things that become those silly excuses? You had some great
Yeah.
examples that I heard.
Yeah. So it really helps to kind of understand how the process works. And then I can go into some of the excuses and why they even come up. Is that okay for me to go in
Sure,
that direction?
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So the part of the brain that creates wants and desires works separately and independent of the part that actually allows us to act on those desires. Now, this is very crucial to understand. So I'll say it one more time. The part of the brain that creates wants works independent of the part that actually allows us to act on the want. So we have one part of the brain that's creating wants, and in many ways, this part is unrestrained. It's creating endless wants one after another. It doesn't check to see, and its purpose was never to determine if the want was worth going after and pursuing. Its only job is to create the wants. And then we have another part of the brain that actually evaluates the want. And this is the part that is designed to see if we should go after and pursue it. So, what's really important to understand is that one brain can both create a desire for something and keep us from going after it. And so, if anyone's ever experienced that tug of war where they want to do this thing, but they can't, now they know why they experience that thing. In fact, for a long time in my journey, I used to think whoever created humanity, whether it was God, aliens, or evolution, must have been really sick and twisted, because how could they do this? How could they do this to us by creating these huge, intense, burning desires and then keep us
Yeah.
from going after it? I mean, it's just like, it's ludicrous. But when
Well,
you
and
look
it
at it from
sounds
the
like it's like we have two people in our heads that don't get along.
exactly, and that's more or less it. There are two voices or two drives, one for the want and one that decides if we should go after it. Now, now that we kind of understand how the process works, I want to go a little deeper as to how the resistance part actually plays out. So,
Right.
anytime a want or desire stands before us, it actually gets evaluated by resistance using a whole host of criteria. And if the decision, the desire, the option is not in line with any of the criteria, it will prevent action. So, a great analogy for this is to think about standing before a panel of judges or board of directors. Every decision or desire that comes up must go through them. And if even one of the members is against the idea, it will not pass.
That
And
sounds like a
so
tough board.
it very tough, which is why a lot of people have a tough time taking
Right.
action, especially on the things that they want or would be the most helpful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so what happens is that it doesn't matter how much motivation you have, how simple the solution is, or even how much benefit you can derive. If this part doesn't give the green light, we cannot act. So then the next question becomes, well, what are these criteria? And there's a host of criteria. There's actually several dozen that I've come across, and I suspect there's even more. And they include some of the basic stuff that we have heard, like beliefs. So if we try to do something that we don't believe is possible, of course, resistance is going to keep us from going after it.
Right.
Though if we try to do something that goes against our habits, same thing. And if we're trying to move forward in a direction, by the nature of moving forward, the inherent nature of doing something new means we're going to go out of our comfort zone. And depending on how sensitive somebody is to the familiar, resistance will show up. So those are three criterias that come up that kind of get talked about in personal development, and it's
Yeah.
kind of common knowledge. But it goes deeper than that. It goes into our identity and self-image. So if we try to do something that is not in line with the identity that we have formed, then it will be difficult to do it. A great example is when we were kids, we wanted to be cool and seen as cool.
You want to be with the cool kids.
Yeah, and there's certain characteristics of being cool,
Yeah.
meaning you don't study or you don't do certain
Oh,
things
yeah.
like chess.
Yeah.
So if you have identified as being cool, your
Mhm.
brain will keep you from doing certain things that are uncool. Even if you wanted to do them, even if it would be helpful, even if your parents said, I'll give you a lot of money if you study, but because it goes against identity, it actually makes it hard. And that's just one example of identity. It really plays out in a lot of ways as adults. For example, if we see ourselves as athletic, it'll be easier to do things like exercise, but not other things that go against that identity. If we don't see ourselves as athletic, then it'll be harder to work out. But then it goes into even deeper stuff, such as authority issues, core needs, demographics, and a host of other things that the brain is constantly evaluating to see if we should do or not anytime that decision or desire does come up. And then to answer your question is the tricks. or the excuses.
Yeah.
The most fascinating and most challenging part of resistance is when resistance stops us from doing something, it doesn't tell us it's stopping us. It doesn't say, hey, Kim, you know that thing that you're trying to do, well, it goes against our identity, so I can't let you do it. Or that project or goal of yours, well, it's going to move us out of our comfort zone. And a part of us likes the familiar, so we're just going to keep you from doing it. That's not
Right.
what happens. Resistance manifests other ways. And oftentimes, it can manifest many ways. One is where we just can't do the thing. Like we're just not able to do it. It's as if there's an invisible force and we can't push past it.
But
Other times,
it's almost like you don't even know there's a force there. Yeah.
Exactly. So you're just not able to do it. Like you're sitting there, you have the desire, and it's like, eh. But other times it's a lot more obvious and overt, meaning it'll trigger fear. So you'll feel anxiety thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
Or there's fear. And that's more obvious. It's like, okay, I am in resistance because I'm feeling a pull away. But then there are things called tricks where it's even more overt and more sneaky. And that is, it'll put us into behaviors that make us seem like we're being productive when we're not.
Those are the ones that made me laugh. Like, I'm sorry. And they're so true.
Yeah. So, and the tricks can be anything as simple as I'll do it later. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it next time. And every time the later and tomorrow comes, we push it off to the next later and the next tomorrow. And for some people, they can be doing that for years and not realize it. And some people have been doing it their whole life, meaning since they were in high school, they had a desire to do something, maybe write a book or do a play or ask someone out. And the mind goes, you know what? We've got a lot of work to do. Once this is done, afterwards we'll get to it. And every time the opportunity comes up, they keep saying later, next time. And literally years in their lifetime, it's been doing it and they don't even realize it. So that's one trick. Other time is people will actually start the task, but they will be planning. So they get into an overly heightened sense of planning, what to do, how to do it, what not to do, how not to do it, and really cross all their I's and T's to make sure they can start perfectly. Now, the more time they spend planning, the less time they're actually taking action. And the less time they're taking action, the less they're actually taking action. So the tricks of resistance wins. Another good example I'll give is perfectionism. The more we fall into a state of perfection, the more we can assume we're in resistance. And perfection is we're trying to do things perfectly. We're trying to make it as best and perfect as possible. And all the time that we put into perfecting, it's time we're not putting it out there. And as long as we're not putting it out there, then we're not actually getting the results, and the tricks of resistance wins. And so, again, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'd love to bring this back around to like, think about the entrepreneur, the small business owner who, I mean, we can say that we've got tons of things to do, and it's really true. And I would just love to chat about some of the things that we do, because I do these things. Even talking about the perfectionism, I don't think it's perfectionism. I think it's just making something work. Like, oh, this little part isn't quite finished, so I can't go on to that. And, like there's this big web of things that will have to be fixed.
So you just described another trick of resistance, which is what I call a bottleneck.
Okay.
So the bottleneck is where there's a small little task that we can do that opens us to being able to do bigger things. But because we don't do it, or we spend more time than we need to on it, we can't take the bigger action. And a great example for people who exercise is they want to get healthy and fit, and then they want to start working out, but then they'll say, "I'll start when I sign up for a gym membership."
Right.
Signing up for a gym membership takes like 20 minutes. You find a gym, go online, you pay the membership fees, and then you can go. But because they procrastinate on that one little thing, they can't go to the gym, and because they can't go to the gym, they can't work out. So they create a bottleneck for themselves. And we do that in business too.
Yeah.
But I'll just kind of talk about some ways it can show up. There's very few tasks that is required to be successful, naturally, ultra successful in business. And that comes down to generating leads, contacting the leads, and following up on the leads.
Oh, I'm
Really,
so
that
glad you're using that because that is one of the things that is so hard because we know without talking to people, it's
Yeah.
not going to move our needle at all, right?
Yeah. But then we go into the states of trying to make that process easier. I'm going to write the perfect pitch
Yeah.
first. I'm going to put together a whole email sequence. So then once they can get into my funnel, it'll be a lot easier. And then I'll have, the sales approach, or, I need to update my PDF so it looks nice. And we're doing all these things to convert the leads, but we're not going on and actually generating the leads, talking to the leads, and following up with them. And as a result, we are not growing.
Yeah.
We'll go as far as to create a podcast because somewhere down the line, someone said, if you have a podcast, you will become more reputable. And so we put in all this time to create a podcast and hopefully generate leads from our guests and things of that nature. But all that time we're setting up the podcast, we might not even launch it.
Yeah.
And this plays out and this plays out in so many other areas in business, especially entrepreneurship, where we're doing these tasks that are just tricks, and it's not actually moving the needle forward, but it's giving the illusion and progress that we are moving the needle forward. And so many entrepreneurs fall into that. And I know you use the word small business. The reason most entrepreneurs are in a small business is because of resistance.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think, easier to run a larger business than a small business. But we stay in a small because there's all sorts of resistance going on. There's probably a belief that we can't be bigger than what we have. Or there might be feelings of undeserving that say we don't deserve bigger success, higher income, or a larger company. There can be feelings of the identity. Some people want to be entrepreneurs, but they don't have the identity of it. So there's a disconnect. So the brain is going, this is not in line with our identity. And so it's trying to pull us towards what our identity is and going against it. And again, I said it goes into deeper stuff like authority issues, into core needs, into other aspects of resistance. So then there's a desire. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be successful. I want to have a successful or growing business. The desire gets filtered through resistance, and resistance goes, well, we don't believe we can succeed. We don't deserve we can succeed. To succeed, we don't know what it's like to be successful in that realm. So this is more familiar. And so resistance puts the brakes. And the way it puts the brakes is with all the tricks that we talked about. We create bottlenecks where we take a small task that could be done in 10, 15, 20 minutes, but we either procrastinate on it or spend much longer than we need to. Or we create a plan and we spend all our time on planning. And every time the plan is done and complete and perfect, we don't feel ready. So what do? We plan more. Or we go into a heightened sense of perfection. And these are just some of the tricks. I mean, these tricks go deep.
We're really good at them. We're really good at them.
And I will even go as far as to say that accidents and ill health are tricks of resistance. If a person is chronically ill, or they get into accidents right at the cusp of something big happening, is because resistance doesn't want us to take that next step.
Ooh,
And
wow.
the reason I talk about accidents and sickness is because when we get into an accident, it takes up all of our attention and focus to rectify and fix it.
And it's a great
Atten-
excuse.
yeah, attention and focus we can't put on moving forward. So it's a great way for our brain to keep us from moving forward. And when we have a health problem, especially when we get sick,
Yeah.
is when we're sick, it just drains our energy. We literally can't do anything because we can't do anything. We can't work on our business. We can't work on our goals. And then it halts progress. So these tricks are very sly. And depending on how strong our resistance is, like how poor our beliefs are, how strongly our authority issues are, how strongly our other defenses are in trying to move us forward, the more these tricks come into play. So yeah.
Right. I have another thought. You talked about beliefs, like we don't necessarily believe that we should have that or be that, or but is it also too? I've heard people talk about protection, like protecting you from something that you, from that belief of maybe failure or something.
So oftentimes when I talk about internal resistance, when people are trying to understand why our brain would want to hold us back,
Yeah.
the first sentence that comes out is, or the first word is protection.
Yeah.
And yes, a lot of resistance has a protection component.
Mhm.
So even though it's creating challenges for us and it's keeping us from the things that we want and desire, it is because it thinks that there's dangers to it. But it's not always about protection. Meaning, when we're talking about authority issues, before I go into authority issues, I want to kind of describe what it is. Authority issues relate to our unconsciously held attitudes toward authority figures such as parents, teachers, principals, bosses, and even personal development coaches like ourselves. And I will extend that definition to anyone who tells us or makes us feel obligated to do something. And I'll share a quick story to illustrate. I had a friend whose parents always nagged and pestered him about cleaning his room. They nagged and pestered him so much that he became spiteful towards them and unknowingly carried that spite for decades. So as an adult, he lived a messy lifestyle simply out of spite. He didn't know why until he saw a therapist that his messy lifestyle was triggered by his parents from over 20 years ago. And our authority issues can last a long time. We can go years or decades resisting an authority and consequently not do anything they've ever said or take any advice they've ever given, no matter how long ago they said or gave it. So what this means is to this day, in this very moment, many of us are doing and not doing certain things, not because they want to do it or not want to do it, but because of this aspect of what's going on internally. So we may have been resistive to studying because of all the teachers telling us to study. We may be resistive to being on time because there was someone at some point in our life who was always on our case about being timely. Or we may be resistive to diet and health because an overbearing mother or father wanted it so badly for us. Or the opposite may be happening. We may have been told not to eat so much junk food or to watch so much television, and now we binge like it's going out of style. We think we enjoy television or junk food, but it's likely because we're resisting some authority at large. So in this case, it's not really about protection because we will resist something good like being healthy, exercising, and even diet just to piss somebody off. And in a lot of ways,
But you're
usually
only
our
hurting
parents.
yourself.
Yeah, exactly, Kim. Our authority issues hurt no one else but ourselves. When we don't listen to our teachers, it doesn't affect her grades, it affects ours. When we don't listen to our parents, it doesn't affect their health, it affects ours. But once this response kicks in, it's hard to actually even know that we are in an authority issue response and it's hard to even stop it, and it makes us do things that are not healthy and destructive. So in this case, resistance comes up not necessarily as a as as a protection thing. So
Right.
a lot of aspects of resistance is protection, but it's not always that. So I want people to understand. If you'd like, I'd love to give another example of a resistance that comes up that I know everyone's experiencing that is not protection related.
I would love you to do that, but before we move ahead, I just want to remind everybody that if you're finding this conversation useful, please hit subscribe or hit follow if you're in LinkedIn. That helps me to keep going and bringing you more guests like this every week. So please subscribe,
Yes.
and please, Kam, tell us more.
Yes, everyone, please subscribe. We're not going to move forward until you do. All right.
Exactly.
Now we can move forward. So this is what I call the high. And to understand the high, let me ask you a question. Have you ever, maybe in school, where you did well on an exam and you didn't put as much time and effort into it than other people, and it gave you this high, like, wow, I didn't have to put in as much effort
Yeah.
and I still
Yeah.
did well?
Yes.
Well, that pattern can get stuck in us because that high feels so good. It's a really positive feeling. Our brain wants to chase it. And because it comes from doing less and getting more results, we can get into a pattern of putting as little effort as possible in life to get maximum results just to keep that high. And because we put in as much little effort as possible, we don't put in the effort we needed to grow, to grow our business, to grow ourselves, to go out and get the leads, because we're chasing the high of not having to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it also makes you look cool when you were trying to be cool.
And if you have an identity of cool, then you're more likely to do it. And we see this pattern all the time. The kids who had that identity of cool that won't let it go as adults, they don't have a very successful and fulfilling life because they're still playing out that thing of not doing the norm, not going against the norm, not doing what everyone else is doing the things that are seen as cool, which
Right.
really limits what they can do, become, and how their life can go, just so they can hold on to either being cool or being high. And now in this case, the high, it's not really a protection thing, unless it's more about getting these positive feelings that can actually be destructive, because the extent people will go through to get that high and how much they'll limit themselves, you can't imagine. There's so many people who are run by this feeling of high, and they think they're cool or better than others because
Right.
they're not working as hard, but their results are very not as hard or high either.
That is amazing to think. Yeah, because I can picture some of I wasn't a cool kid. I would have liked to be, because that was, what everybody wanted to achieve. But I was your average Joe. But I can see back, just because you said that, if I look at some of the people and they're not as successful as I thought they were going to be, because I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to be like, prime minister or president or whatever. And you're right, they're not.
Yeah.
So
it's because there's things internally going on that are holding us back. I apologize. I know I interrupt you a lot, so go ahead.
No, I'm thinking, okay, let's say that, we do finally realize that there's probably things that are a resistance for us. What are we going to do to move through it, or, get past this to make our lives better and our businesses grow if we're really struggling with something like that?
So that is $1 million question. And if I had that answer, I would be a billionaire because I know everyone would love that answer.
Yes.
There are answers, but I want people to understand the complexity of what we're dealing with. The human mind and body are the pinnacle complexity. In fact, some say it's more complex than any other structure in the known universe. And we're starting to see the complexities of what's going on with internal resistance. We just talked about only a few of the criterias, and I
Right.
said there's dozens and dozens, and we've only talked about a few of the tricks. And we didn't even go into the challenges our own wants create. It's hard to imagine, but our own wants and desires can be the very things that hold us back. And so when we're dealing with the complexity, the solutions obviously aren't going to be very simple and cookie cutter. And so there's various frameworks I like to use or help people think about when we are trying to overcome resistance. The first is to understand. The first is not to understand, but the first is to actually look at the causes. We learned that there's many causes of resistance. Our own
Right.
wants can create resistance. Resistance has many criteria that create resistance, and then there's many tricks. So we look at how is our wants showing up, what criteria are blocking us, or what tricks are showing up, and address those specific things. And this becomes challenging because then we need to use solutions for the specific trick and the specific resistance. And using one solution doesn't necessarily help with another
Right.
area, and it can actually be counterintuitive. And so that's one way, is to look at what is causing the keeping us from moving forward, and then address the cause. The other way,
So, and I just want to reiterate, so you're saying too, which was really important, is that everybody is like a different combination of, what's resisting and their desires, their beliefs, what
tricks.
situation they've
Yeah,
had in their youth and growing up, et cetera, that cause all this. So it will take different ways to unlock this, I guess.
100%. Thank you for saying what I should have been saying. But more or less, what I'm trying to say is there's no cookie cutter solutions, which is why, of all the tools that are out there, it doesn't work across the board, and why different people still struggle, even though for some it does work, but for a lot it doesn't, because there's different things that are going on that's holding us back. And we need the tools and the techniques and the tips that address our specific thing. And because there's different elements of our challenges, the wants, the resistance, as well as the tricks,
Yeah.
the right combination can be a little challenging to find the right recipe, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is one framework of looking at it. Another framework I like to help people understand is how you take action. So some people are really good at getting excited about things, but they never start. Other people are really good at starting, but they don't stick with it. Other people are good at sticking with it, but they seem to sabotage themselves before they get to the end or when they're making progress.
Yeah.
And other people are really good at actually getting to the finish, but they stop doing what got them to the finish. So then, if you can identify where you're at, you can use different tips to help you get over it. For example, if a person gets really excited about starting things, but doesn't, or getting excited about a lot of things, but doesn't start any of them, one of the best things they could do is pick one thing and cut out all the rest. Don't worry about, don't think about, or consider anything else until the first they have started and finished. So that's an easy framework.
That's not easy.
Framework, I said, not the
Yeah.
action.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So for the people who are good at starting, but they never, but they fall off, use a technique in meditation. So I think we've all meditated at one point. Now I can break down meditation into two forms. You're either trying to hold a thought or image, or you're trying to clear your mind from any sort of thought and image.
Right.
Now, regardless of the type of meditation, it's impossible to do either for an extended period. You're going to fall off. But that's not the goal of meditation. The goal is when you do fall off, you jump right back in. So if you're trying to hold a thought and you lose it, you bring the
Right.
thought back. If you're trying to keep your mind clear and thoughts come up, you clear. And when they come up again, you clear again. So if a
Right.
person who is good at starting but doesn't stick with it, every time they fall off, instead of going into self beat up or shame and blame, jump
Or
right
I'm
back
not
in.
good at this. This doesn't work for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, just jump right back in.
Right.
And then if they fall off again, jump back in again and keep doing that until they get to the finish. For the person who's really good at sticking with things, but they seem to never get to the finish line,
Yeah.
is they have to build a muscle to finishing things. So the way the body is built, it's not like our brain is one whole processing unit where we just think about doing something and we do it. Like we have to build a muscle for everything that we've ever done or are doing. If we think back to even walking, at one point we couldn't walk and it took months for actually us to build a muscle to walk. Even putting on clothes, something that we don't even think about doing anymore, we actually had to learn that skill. And so we have to build a muscle to start things, we have to build a muscle to stick with things, and we have to build a muscle to finish things. So if a person has never finished a lot of things, they don't have the muscle for it, and it's just going to be hard to do. And so they have to work on putting all their effort to finish things and start building the muscle to finish things. And then the person who's good at finishing things but doesn't stick with what the activities that got them there, this is where the whole yo-yo dieting and yo-yo pattern come up. Is people do all this work to get to the finish line and they assume once they got to the finish that they're there. But what's really important to understand is that success is much harder to keep than to achieve. Like success
Ooh,
is already
that's
hard
so
to
true.
achieve.
Yeah.
It's so hard to achieve. And then once you get there, you're like, oh, but then it's actually harder to keep.
Yeah.
And that's why I said this is where the yo-yo patterns come, because we don't realize that and we start falling off. And for them, they have to put in more effort to keep the success.
We have to relate this back to business building, because let's just think about those simple things that you talked about. You know, we think building a business, oh, we'll go build a podcast, we'll write a book. You know, those are the long-term things. But
Yeah.
what are those things that are going to move your business fast? You know, making those phone calls, making those
Yeah.
connections, the things
Following
that,
up on the leads.
yeah, that we make
Yeah.
excuses for. But you're right, the same things happens if, and I'm saying this because I can picture myself in this. I do it, I get a few results, I think great, and then I don't want to do it again.
So many people. And
Yeah.
we can even use podcasts as an example, because starting out a podcast isn't easy. It's gotten easier now with all the new technology, but getting the mic, getting the background set up, finding hosts, interviewing them, editing. There's so many things that go on for a podcast, like the name for the podcast, a cover for the podcast, signing up for accounts on the different platforms that you're going to upload the podcast to. There's so many nuances that in the beginning, if you don't know them, it's really, really hard. And once you
Yeah.
do all that, it's like, okay, I have a podcast. But
Yeah.
then now I got to interview people on a regular basis. I got to get those videos edited. I got to make sure they go live. I got
I
to
have
send
to
the
find
follow up.
people to.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
harder after you start. And this plays out in so many areas. And you described a few, you know, for the lead building, networking. The first time we network, it's like scary and we do it and it's great. We get all these business cards. Some of them turn into leads and clients, but then we got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And then the consistency becomes hard. So that's another framework I use. So one framework is looking at the cause of the resistance and addressing the cause. The other is looking at how you start things and focus on where you're at to be able to get to the finish and keep consistent.
Yeah.
And then the other is actually rewiring your mind, because majority of our decisions and actions and our inability to take action isn't happening at our conscious level. We're not thinking that. It's all happening in our unconscious. Meaning even the things that we desire and have a desire for comes from our unconscious, and then our unconscious blocks that desire, and then the tricks show up from the unconscious as well, and all without us awareness of it. So wildly enough, we can have a want and our mind block us and put us in these tricks without us even know that it's happening. So then
Because
if we
they
can
seem
rewire,
natural. They seem natural. Like it doesn't seem like we're doing anything terrible.
That's why the tricks work so well. And I like to say is you wouldn't think of them as tricks, which is why they work so well and why you so easily fall for them. But what if we could rewire our mind? So instead of creating this pattern, it creates a pattern where it gives us a clear goal. It motivates us to take action on the goal, and it doesn't pull up any tricks and keeps us sticking with that goal until we get to the end. Right?
Wouldn't that be fabulous?
So much better. And there's ways to do that. There are a lot of techniques out there that help with that, such as NLP. I haven't got as much results of it, but people rave about it. What I've gotten the most results with is self-talk and visualization. So with self-talk, for those who don't know, there are statements you repeat of the changes you want to have or have happen. And the more you repeat it, the more it goes into your mind, rewires it to create that behavior. A couple of simple statements could be, if a person wants to become more healthy, they would repeat statements like, I am healthy and fit. I eat well and exercise regularly. The more they start to repeat it, interestingly enough, Kim, the more they'll just start to act out that behavior without even realizing or without even putting force into it. They just think that they're naturally doing it. And we can create statements like that in all areas, including entrepreneurship. I am, I've never done it for entrepreneurship, but like, I am a successful entrepreneur. I focus on tasks that get results. I am, getting leads and clients. My revenue is growing. My business is growing. All those are great statements that they can repeat them themselves. If they start repeating that, then it'll rewire their brain to not create unrelated wants, like wanting to go hiking or wanting to become, fitness junkie.
Right.
But instead, the wants will be created towards the words they're describing in being successful entrepreneurship. And then because they're rewiring themselves, they're creating an identity of that. They're reducing their authority issues. So when that desire gets filtered by resistance isn't going, I'm going to stop you. It's actually opening the gates. And because it opens the gates, there's less tricks. And that kind of works in our favor. I like self-talk because it's so simple. All you got to do is figure out the precise outcome you're seeking, turn it into concise statements, and just repeat it all day long for the rest of your life.
So does it help to write it, like journal it? And then, I find that I remember things more if I write it down, like literally not type it, but write
Success is all in the nuances. So I can talk to you about, hey, you should do self-talk. Repeat positive things of the direction you want to go. But I can talk an hour about the nuances of self-talk that actually make it effective. And that's a very good question. Do we write it? Do we put it on a Post-it and put it on our mirror and look at it? What I like to say is there's levels. So any self-talk is better than none. So if you are writing it regularly, that's good. Or if you have it on your mirror or you look at it, that's one level. But if you're actually taking action and writing it regular basis, not once or twice, that's the next level. The most effective is actually speaking it. That's why I didn't say
Oh,
affirmation, and I am
okay.
intentionally using the word self-talk. You want to talk and speak out those words. Now you
Right.
could do it in your head or out loud. In your head is one level, out loud is better. And then the other levels are if you say it in belief. Because it's easy to say those statements, but not believe that's happening or possible, and it can even feel awkward. But as
Yeah.
long as you say it, is better than nothing. But if you say it with belief, that's even better. And if you say it with positive feelings, that's even better. So there's levels
Oh,
to most
wow.
anything, and our success in the nuances. So if we could say it in positive belief and positive feelings, but not overly confident and an unreasonable way, but in just a natural way. When you're in a certain point in life and you talk about how you are in that point, and you say it that way about your goals,
Yeah.
like let's say right now you have 10,000 in your bank account, and you say I got 10,000 in my bank account, and you can just say it in such a nonchalant way because it's so true. But if you
Right.
could say that, if you could say I have 100,000 in my bank account in that same way, that's what I mean by belief and positive
Oh,
emotion. I'm not saying I have $100,000. I mean, that doesn't work. That's Tony Robbins stuff.
yeah.
And I don't think most people who do what Tony Robbins is suggesting gets results, but he's a great marketer and he knows how to rile people up.
True, true. It's a good show.
Yeah. Well, Tony Robbins even said, I think he said it about last decade. He said, we're no longer in the information age, we're in the entertainment age. And I think he
Yes.
gets, because when you look at Tony Robbins events, it's like a concert. He's really
It,
catering to people who have become accustomed to receiving in that way. I don't want to say receiving information, but in that way, how movies and um, concerts and shows are just really flash, big lights,
and
and
it's
really
the
in
way
your
it makes
face.
you feel.
Well, they're just addicted to that thing, and some people can't hear without being spoken that way. And I think he
Hmm.
gets that, and that's how and why he does what he does. But I don't think it's effective. Like you don't want to be going up and down so much because that can become habit, and
That's
it's
that
not very
same thing
effective.
that you talked about, that high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then now we're
Hmm.
just chasing highs and not really getting work done. There's a time and place for it.
That would be
Don't get me
another
wrong.
excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have to ask you if, when you're working with people, you know, what does that look like? How do people see, some sort of way of working with you?
So I will be honest, being a coach of internal resistance is probably one of the toughest coaches because you're getting people who are just blocked. They
Yeah.
just they can't take the action. It's not about advice giving. I can have the perfect tools. I can give them perfect tips. Um, I can motivate them, but because they have the risks, they can't take action. So it's very different from traditional coaching and
Right.
traditional type of work with people because they're already blocked, and because they're blocked, they're tougher to work with. So I
Right.
don't even start with any of that stuff. No
Right.
motivation, no inspiration, because the last thing I want to do is flood them with all these positive feelings. And when they fade, they're just as stuck. And then they become frustrated. And then
Mhm.
that pattern can become habit where they're constantly going from getting excited and motivated to getting stuck and then feeling bad. And once that becomes habit, game over. It's almost nearly impossible to break. So a lot of my work is I developed a method. I call it the Kam Knight method. I just got the trademark for it
Oh,
this
yeah.
month, actually.
Exciting. Exciting.
Yeah, where I take people into their unconscious and we do
Oh,
the work there. We unwire it at the unconscious level. It's not NLP or hypnosis. It's a very special process I've developed that it's very, very, very let's just say, meticulous in weaving through a person's defenses to getting access to their blocks, working through their blocks, and being able to move forward. And the way I see how the mind works is, therapy focuses on going to the past and working through the things that are holding us back.
Right.
Personal development focuses on the future, figuring out where you are and where you want to go and finding the shortest path there. I think we have to do both. So what I describe when I go into people's minds and undo the resistance, that's working on their past. But just because I undo their resistance doesn't mean they'll be able to take forward moving action. And so we have to reprogram their mind. And again, one of the ways is with self-talk. Visualization is another way. But I like self-talk because when you're working with resistance, again, you have to take a completely different approach. When you're working with an A-type personality, it's about giving them tips and techniques where they can maximize results. With resistance, you want to give them the simplest things that give the most, has the most effect. Simple things that make doing the other stuff easier. And I found self-talk to be the simplest. And if I can get a person to self-talk consistently on a regular basis, then it's possible for them to make the changes that they want. So, yeah.
So it sounds to me like what you're doing too with your work is you're getting, those two people in your brain to actually come together and work together and be maybe amicable and support each other.
Yeah, I'm trying to rewire it in a way where they work towards what the person wants.
Yeah.
Do
you have any example that you could share of, obviously without names or anything, but just what people have been able to accomplish doing this?
I have helped people with some of the most disturbing things you can imagine. And I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, but with some people, with the process that I have outlined, I feel like performed downright miracles in helping them work through challenges. I'll give one example of someone I'm working with right now who has stage fright. And what's challenging for her about it is she loves being on stage. Ever since she was a kid, she's always been a performer and stuff.
Right.
And then through various experiences in her life, it got to the point where it's now crippling fear and anxiety, and the amount of effort and turmoil she goes through to do it has been just, unbearable. And exhausting, is to say the least. And she's done so much work, the kind of work, like spend lots of money on it. And when we can go into the unconscious and release a lot of the things that are creating the resistance, that intense fear and the turmoil and the constant thoughts in the head of what are people going to think, that they like it, and constantly having to perform at such a high level just to not feel bad that they didn't do a good job. When we can release that, that's what I'm talking about. And it's possible to do it very quickly. Like I'm talking a few sessions.
Oh, and I was going to ask you, how long does this take?
So again, traditional approaches, I've had people tell me years and decades. But I can help people through, within 2 to 3 sessions, maybe a little bit more, up to 5. Most people have never needed more than 6 sessions, which is what makes my job even more challenging, because my goal is to heal or to fix and not manage. So when you can fix somebody so quickly, you constantly have to get new clients.
You've created your own problem. Oh my goodness.
I'm telling you, Kim, it's a tough problem, because literally when you can just like get rid of something that someone's been struggling with for months and years in a matter of a few sessions, like you're constantly needing to
the next person to come in.
Yeah. So
oh my goodness.
it doesn't bode well with what I'm doing. So I think I got to raise my prices for sure.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, the work I put in to learn this stuff and the amount of time I put in helping others get through it, I have developed the expertise to help people get through resistance much quicker than an alternative. And so with this woman, she's already feeling comfortable. A lot of the things that would give her just intense anxiety, she's not experiencing.
Yeah.
And another person I was working with, stage fright as well, after the third session, her exact words were, I forgot what it was even like to be afraid to speak.
Wow. Wow.
That's how powerful
That's
it is.
huge because everyone has it to a certain degree. So imagining it not being
Somebody
there.
who has it really strong to the point where they forgot that what it was like in
Yeah.
3 sessions.
Wow.
This is why I say I can work miracles with this.
Well, speaking of that, if someone listening realizes that they are running into resistance with their business or some part of their life, how do they get in touch with you? How do they find out if, it might be a good idea to work with you or find out more? Can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can just email me at coach@kamknight.com. They can see my website is kamknight.com. Type in COACH in front at kamknight.com, and they can reach out. Whether they think it's right, it's going to be right because we all have resistance. We all have some area that's holding us back, whether it was from events that happened in our childhood, from peers, from parents, from various incidents and events that are really holding us back, and they know it is. And those things I can really help them work through much quicker than the alternative and in a more direct and focused way where we don't have to go through all these detours. We just work on the very thing that's driving the challenge.
That's amazing. This has been such a great conversation, and I have so much more I would love to get into, but I could go on forever. So I'm sure that if you've been listening to this, that you have more questions and thoughts that I'm sure you would love to chat with Kam. So reach out to him. He's also on LinkedIn. You're on Instagram. We'll put in all of those things in the show notes so that you can check him out on different areas before you even go and get in touch with him. But I think that a lot of people could be served well and get over things. And you and I are going to have to talk some more because I've heard some really good things from other people about you as well. So thank you so much for being here, Kam. I really appreciate all the information that you've shared with your expertise. And thank you for spending time with us. And if this conversation was useful, remember, hit subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. And I'll see you there. Thanks again. Bye for now, everyone.